Welcome back. So now that we know how much traffic we're getting and which country that's the most valuable to us, now we're going to ask the question, who is our audience? What gender is overrepresented? What age are they? What are their interests? And besides, which gender and ages are the most valuable to us, meaning generating the most revenue or has the most page watches or the longest average duration on our website? This is all super important knowledge to understand so that you know who you're talking to in order to focus and attract more of the highest quality traffic. Okay, let's dive in. We're going to start by going to audience because remember, we're talking about our audience here, learning about their demographics. Gonna open that up and then go down to where it says demographics and then click on overview. Now, if you are on the demo account, which you really should be, then you're gonna get all of this wonderful data. But first of all, what you want to do is move back to your own account because this isn't enabled for you yet. You need to do a couple of setups in order to have and get this data. So what we're gonna do is click up here. If you missed that, it's right up here where it says master view. Click there, and then we're gonna move back to our own account, and of course UA, Google Analytics 3, and then click on all website data. And now we need to enable this function. But before we enable this function, it's very important that your website has a privacy policy. Because what you're essentially doing is tracking and saving down and using their information. And in order to track down and save and use their information, you need to have their permission to do so. And having a privacy policy that is visible and a cookie notice that lets them know what you're doing with their data, this is going to make sure that everything you do and save down is completely legal. So remember, make sure that you do have a privacy policy on your website. When you do, you go back here and then you just click on enable. Congratulations, you have enabled it, and it might take up to 24 hours before there's any data available. But just make sure you go through that process so that you can start saving down this data and get these reports. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna head back now that it's enabled on your account. Make sure you do that. Let's head back to demo account, Google Analytics 3, UA, Universal Analytics, and then Master View. So here you're gonna get the demographics report that will show you who your most valuable targeted audience is. Now, there may be surprises in here. For example, if you're selling a grooming kit for men, but you find that it's mostly women who buy it, chances are that they're buying it for their partners. Now, you could then change your marketing strategy to have your product come gift wrapped or use a language that goes more like, surprise your man with the best self-care tool he can possibly get, etc. So all of this data is so valuable to understand who's buying it, try to figure out why they're buying it, and then make sure that your marketing and your product reflects that even more, because that's going to mean that people stay longer on your website and buy more of your products because you're aiming in your targeted audience better. Okay, so let's look at some of this data. First of all, you're going to notice that it's mostly represented by males. It has 55.7 over 44.3%. So there's a slight dominance, but it's not huge, okay? But the important thing is when you're looking at your users, when you're trying to figure out your demographics, this data isn't enough, okay? We can see that the majority is 25 to 34, with 37%. And we can see that there is a small majority here in male versus female. But we want to know from all of our data, from all of the traffic we've gotten, who actually enjoys our website the most, who actually buys the most, stays the longest, who frequents our websites mostly. Then you don't want to just go for a month, you want to go for a couple of years. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go all the way back to 2018. So I just removed that, and now I'm putting in 2018 so that the date range is from the 15th of September 2018 to the 14th of October 2021, and then I'm gonna hit apply. Now notice that the gender dominance of males over females just increased, and this is super important because if you were planning on doing an even balance and try to target both male and female, that might actually have been a mistake, because we can see that men are overrepresented in our data. Okay, we can also see that this increased from 37% to 41%. So this really is an even more dominant age range than we thought. So make sure that when you're trying to figure out who your ideal audience is, that you're looking way back in a bigger date range and not just month per month, because that fluctuates. okay? But when you're figuring out who your buyer is, you want to have all the data that's available. Now, I just put 2018 as a random number. It could have been anything, but you want to go way, way, way back to when you started. Okay, so now we know that men are overrepresented here, but that doesn't mean that they're the highest quality traffic. Also doesn't mean that this age is the highest quality traffic. We can never take that for granted. Just because it's the majority doesn't mean that it's the highest quality. We've already learned this. So what we're going to do is we're going to move down to where it says gender in here, and we're gonna click there. So if we scroll down, the first thing we can do is move to the right and look at the revenue generated. We can see that, they're quite close. We can see that females actually have a lower percentage than men, which is no surprise. We just saw that, but they're not too far from each other when it comes to revenue generated. This is actually telling me that females are a really good target to be targeting, even though men are the majority here. So that's some pretty good data to understand when it comes to revenue generated. So this isn't something that would have been obvious if we just looked at the data, because we can see that there's almost, not quite, but we're close to having double the amount of men if we're looking at 62 versus 37, but we're very close in the actual revenue generated. So clearly, women are more happy to be shopping than men, okay? So that's the first thing to know, that, okay, focusing more towards women would be a really good marketing plan. Now, the second thing to look at is the bounce rate. We can see that women actually leave more often than men, but it's not by a huge margin, okay? They do prefer to stay a little longer. This isn't any big data. This is really big data, looking at these comparison and then seeing the differences in the actual amount of users. Now, if I want to figure out, okay, so most likely it's a very good idea to focus more on women. And remember, we had the ages 25 to 34 being overrepresented. The next question is, what ages should we be focusing in? So let's click in on females and explore them a little further. Scrolling down, we can see that the majority is actually coming from 25 to 34 years old. Okay, that stands for 41% of the total amount of users. We knew that already, but what about the revenue being generated? Now, this is where it once again gets interesting. We can see that in the second place, well, first of all, they're already a majority, so indeed this is a very good age range to be targeting. But then we can go down slightly and look at what about the 18 to 24. They are the second majority in here, and if we look at the revenue being generated, they are indeed the second majority. But here we're talking about a difference in 8% when it comes to total amount of users, but we're only talking about 3% when it comes about when we're talking about actual revenue being generated. So from my point of view, when we're looking up towards the ages, we're actually making more money per traffic being gathered. Even here, 45 to 54, we can see that it only stands for 8.9% of the total amount of traffic, but it stands for 13% of the revenues. If you wanted to make an as efficient of a marketing plan as possible, first of all, I would target this age range, and then I would start creeping up towards this age range and then this age range, and just leave this one totally out of it. Because if you're looking at the revenue generated per actual amount of users, this is going to give you more bang for the buck, and these as well. And then we're starting to drop off a little bit as we go lower. So this is really valuable data. Now we can go back as well. We know that Google has a section for men, and we know that they have a section for women, and we know that women actually generate a lot of money. So adding in more products and writing more content with a language towards women, that would be a perfect marketing strategy. But what about the ages for men? We can click in on male, and scrolling down here we have quite a bigger discrepancy. First of all, the majority, just like we knew before, is between 25 and 34-year-olds, and they are generating the vast amount of revenue. Perfect, that makes sense, so this is a good age range. But here's a much bigger difference for the men compared to the women. If you're looking at 18 and 24, we can see that they are the second biggest majority with just 2%. But if you're looking at the actual revenue being generated, it's just 17%. Look just one step down. Now, this age range, who's generating less traffic, is generating 6%, almost slightly more than 6% more revenue. That's pretty amazing data. So that means that without a doubt, even though there's more traffic coming from this age range, is indeed more profitable, even when it's generating less traffic like it is right now, it's generating more revenue. So that's the sort of valuable data that we're looking for, that we want to enhance, not just for our marketing and writing our content, but also if we plan on do any form of ads, we know that we shouldn't target this age range. Yes, it's popular. Yes, it does generate some revenue for you, but these are much easier to sell to. These are the ones you want to be targeting. So from this data, when it comes to men's products, I would focus on the ages 25 to 44 because we can see that those are some really good ages. And now it's starting to drop off a little as we go down, but it's still pretty good even down here. But I would start off with using 25 to 44 and try to create a buyer persona and understand who that is, because now we have a deeper understanding of our demographics. We know the country, we know how much traffic we're getting, we know what age is good, we know it's a good idea to focus on slightly older people, that is above 24, well, older, depends on your age, and to focus more on women's products because they are slightly underrepresented, but they're generating great revenue. So awesome, now we've found our higher quality traffic by looking at our demographics. And remember, you want to also be looking at the average session duration and the amount of pages per session when we're talking about creating content, building a brand, and trying to get ad revenue. So for example, once again, we're seeing the same trend, 18 to 24, well, they have less page sessions than 25 to 34, and even more in 35 to 44. So it's clear that they are a much higher quality traffic. And the same is reflected in the bounce rate. Many more people in this age range, of course, have a lower attention span, which makes sense, but they're also just not as interested, so they're bouncing more. And we can see the bounce, the increase as the age go up here, but that is the sweet spot, 25 to 44. So that is the higher quality traffic, no matter if you're looking at revenue or if you're looking at generating ad revenue through your content or building your brand. Awesome, valuable data. I hope you're having as much fun as me and actually following along here step by step. Remember, you can replay these videos as many times as you want to further understand what we're talking about. These lectures are always available to you. Now, in the next lecture, we're going to be looking at the pages to figure out what pages on your website do people like the most and stay on the most. This is going to allow you to create more content that people like and just, stop creating the content that people don't actually like. Okay, very important. See you in the next lecture.